There is an intelligence which permeates every atom of matter and embraces every unit of energy perception. This infinite intelligence converts acorns into oak trees, causes water to flow downhill in response to the law of gravity, follows night with day and winter with summer. This intelligence may, through the principles of this philosophy, be induced to aid in transmuting desires into concrete or material form. But does it really work in the real world? There's only one way to find out. Hello there and welcome. You know, you and I are supposed to be here. We're in the right place at the right time. There are no accidents in this whole universe. Everything operates in an orderly way. You've been wandering around, I would imagine, with a desire inside that you really want to improve any or maybe all areas of your life. What you're going to hear will enable you to change that. And this is all about you. It's not about me, it's about you. I'm going to share information with you that really originated way back in 1908 from the wealthiest man in the world, Andrew Carnegie. He commissioned a young reporter to go out and find the laws that govern success. There were successful people, himself, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison. Some of the giants that we look at in history as names that will live, they'll live forever. And he said it was a shame that these people were going to go to their grave with all this knowledge locked up in their bones. And he said, I think it should be recorded. And that young man, Napoleon Hill, he took Carnegie's challenge and he went and worked at that until 1928, when he wrote The Laws of Achievement. And then in 1937, from it came the book, one of the greatest selling books of all time, Think and Grow Rich. And in that book, he pointed out, after all these years of research, that he found there were 30 major causes of failure. But there were only 13 ideas that contributed to a person accumulating a fortune or enjoying real success. One of the things I found interesting is at the end of the 30 major causes of failure, he put 31. He said, if I've missed any, you can fill this in. And I would imagine that someone has filled that in. So I want you to really pay close attention. This is not an ordinary film that you're watching. These are not ordinary ideas. These ideas are coming from 57 years of focused study by myself and tens of years by Napoleon Hill. But it's really the composite of some of the greatest minds that ever lived. Because he did research with these people for so long, kept picking their brains. In fact, he became very close friends with them. And what caused them to do many of the things they were doing, the ideas that got the Wright brothers off the ground, that enabled Henry Ford to build the car he built. These ideas, they're the ideas that you can have and you can use. Now, I know they work because I've used them. I've used them almost all of my adult life. In the preamble of the book, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill says there's a secret in this book. And he said, if you can find the secret in the book, you can have anything you seriously want. Actually, I'm wondering, what's the secret when I first started to read the book? Do you know, almost every seminar that I've ever spoken in, or any convention I ever spoke, I talk about that. And people say, what's the secret? I said, you know, if I told you what the secret was, you're not going to look for it. And if you don't look for it, you're not going to find what you really need to get to where you want to go. I have never told anyone what my perception of that secret is. But he pointed out that everyone who found it and used it has earned millions of dollars. They have built very large organizations. And he names them one after another after another. Very impressive names. Every one of them found the secret. You're going to find the secret. in these 13 principles, believe me. One day I took a pen and I sat down and I said, I'm going to build a company that operates all over the world. I had absolutely no idea how I was going to do it. But you know what I've found? You don't have to know how you're going to do it. You just have to know you're going to do it. So if you've got a desire to build something, to do something that's extraordinary for you, I can promise you one thing. If you will focus on what I'm suggesting, I'm going to show you how to do it. You see, the beautiful truth is you've already got everything you need inside. You don't have to get it. You don't have to follow the pattern that our formal educational institutions teach us. You don't have to read all the books. That's unnecessary. I think Madame Montessori put it very well. She said, we tend to send a child to school as if they're an empty cup and we expect them to fill the cup. She said, the truth is the cup's already full. School is help draw what's already there. You see, you and I are God's highest form of creation. There's nothing on the planet that will even come close to us. Strange thing, you know, you and I are the only creature on the planet that is totally disoriented in our environment. All those other little creatures, they're completely at home in their environment. They blend in. We don't. We're totally disoriented. That is because we have the ability, you and I did, of creating our own environment. Now think of what that means. That means that you and I can literally create the life we want. You know, as I said, when I first heard that, I did not believe it. But I knew the man that was giving me the advice believed it. And that man was Raymond Douglas Stanford, one of my very first mentors. And as he said to me, he said, Bob, your way's not working. Why don't you try mine? Now, to help you understand where I was, I'd been asked to leave school. They didn't want me there after 2 months in high school. And I can understand why they didn't want me. I was a poor student. I didn't want to pay attention. I'd never held a half-decent job in my life. I was earning $4,000 a year, but I owed $6,000. The prospect of even getting out of debt wasn't there. He said, Bob, that's all reasons why you can't do what you want to do. We're not going to spend any time on that. We're going to focus on how you can. This idea has been proved by people much smarter than us. And the beautiful truth is, it works for everyone. Not just some people, for everyone. And I think this thing is stuck in my mind. He said, your way's not working. Why don't you try mine? Now spend a moment right now and ask yourself, what would you really like to do? I mean, what do you really want? Do you know, the truth is your spiritual DNA is perfect. We hear a lot of talk about DNA today. Well, if you get past all the nonsense that's been programmed into our subconscious mind from genetics and then our environment, and get right down to the core of who you really are, your spiritual DNA is perfect. And it's that perfection that's seeking expression with and through us. That's why we want things. It doesn't matter what we're doing, we want more. Now, as a little boy, I was taught by my grandmother, who pretty well raised me, that you should be satisfied with what you've got. Grandma was a dear woman. She was like an angel of God, but she was wrong. We should never be satisfied with what we got. We should be happy with what we've got, but never satisfied. You see, dissatisfaction is a creative state for our mind to move into. It causes us to want to do more. We should ask ourselves where those wants come from. Do you know it's that perfection within that keeps jabbing you in the consciousness? Want this, want that. If you're running, you want to run faster. If you're jumping, you want to jump higher. If you're selling, you want to sell more. If you're singing, you want to sing a better tune. It doesn't really matter what you're doing. You want to do it better. And the beautiful part of this is you can. You see, I have practiced all 30 rules for losing. I know them well. None of them work. They'll never give us what we want. But I have spent many, many years on the 13 principles of success that have helped millions of people earn millions of dollars. You just see, the one criteria is it doesn't matter where you're at right now. If you are very successful, you can become more successful because you have infinite potential. No one can even guess at what you and I are capable of doing. If you've been failing miserably up till now, that doesn't matter. Let the dead bury the dead. We let the past go. And we just focus on who we are, where we are, and what we're going to do. These 13 principles all come together like a beautiful mosaic. Now, although I will explain each one, I don't think you can talk about one without the other. We're getting into ideas like desire, decision, the sixth sense, organized planning. All these ideas are so important. And when you first look at it, it may seem overwhelming. How would I ever be able to do this? It isn't even difficult. We're going to give you a path. If you get on that path, you're going to have an absolutely phenomenal future. The future will be beautiful. Oh, you'll have some problems. We all do. I still have, and I've been working at this for all my adult life. But you know something? Our perception of the problem is different because we see the opportunity in it. If we didn't have any problems, we would be living a pretty dull life. We wouldn't be living at all, we'd be existing. So as we go along here, really focus. Don't treat this as some self-help program. It goes so much deeper than that. It's so much more important. There's been so many hours by brilliant people that have used this information, that have tested it for many, many years. You have the opportunity now to put all this to work. And as you put it to work like that, you'll start to see changes happen. If you give yourself a window of time, maybe 6 months, a year, 2 years, you're going to look, your perception of your life will shift so dramatically. You'll think you were reading about somebody else's life when you look back. I often say you're going to need a telescope to look back and see where you started. Now, that may sound like an exaggeration, but it's really not. Remember I said I was $4,000 in debt, or I earned $4,000 and I owed $6,000? I've earned millions of dollars. Now, I don't say that to impress you, but to impress upon you, if a guy like myself can do it, anybody can do it. It's pretty well known today there's a lot of fear in the world. People are wondering what's going to happen. We've gone through many tough times if you study history. I was born during the Great Depression. So I was of an age then, I remember some of the things as a little kid. Then we went into a world war. And when the Depression ended, it was sort of like a theater where the lights were out. It was empty, but the lights started to come up and things started to get brighter. And of course, they became very bright. So the fear, don't let fear control you. Fear is a negative emotion. By following these principles, you're going to be on the other side of fear, where there's faith. There's a law of the universe called polarity. That law decrees everything has an opposite. Every negative has a positive. The truth is, it's neither positive or negative. It's our thinking that makes it so. Everything just is. We can make it what we want. Make up your mind now. You're going to go in the positive polarity. You're going to stay with me because that's where I'm going. And there'll be a very bright future. Let the fear go. It isn't necessary. The cause of it is ignorance. The cause of all fear is ignorance. I'm going to give you understanding. It only comes through study. But it will brighten your life and it will improve your results. And I've had nothing but a strong desire to teach this now for years and years. At first, I didn't know what happened. I was studying this. I was winning. I didn't know why. I earned over $1 million in a year. And I had absolutely no idea how I had done it. Now, probably like yourself, I had been raised to believe if you're going to earn a lot of money, you've got to be really smart. I knew I wasn't very smart, but I was earning a lot of money. I was raised to believe that You're going to get a good job. You've got a good formal education. I didn't have any. I had 2 months in a technical school in high school. I didn't have a good job. I owned the whole company. I had offices in Toronto, Montreal, Boston, Cleveland, Atlanta, London, England. And I looked at all this and I thought, how did this happen? And I didn't know. If you had asked me, I couldn't tell you. But you know what I have found? I have found most highly successful people cannot articulate on why they are. They will say, well, I do this or I do that. And they'll point to one of these 13 principles that they worked at master. The truth is, they're probably using them all and just not aware of it. They're what you call, or I call, an unconscious competent. They're very competent, but they're not consciously aware of why. Now, the sad part of this is that they've got this wonderful way of life, but they can't even transfer it to their children, nor can they give it to their staff. So you find very successful businessmen and women in business or just in life, but they don't know why. Well, I got very curious. I wanted to know why. Why did a guy like me change? I didn't believe there was an emotional or capricious God reached out and said, let's give Bob a chance. I didn't believe that. I thought, something's happened. What's happened? Well, I spent 9.5 years studying with some absolutely brilliant people. Now, I formed a good habit over that time. I picked good mentors, and that's very important. You can use these films as a mentor. You can. You can let me be your mentor. You know, I've often heard it said people that have been gone for a couple of thousand years can help you more than somebody that's alive today. And I get a lot of help, people that have been gone for a long time, through their books and writings. So you could use this series as a mentor. But a habit I formed right from the first person that helped me, Ray Stanford, he said, do exactly what I tell you. And for some reason, I decided I would. I didn't question him, I just did it. He said, do it until you find out I'm lying or I don't know what I'm talking about. And he said, I don't lie, and I do know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to say that to you, and hopefully you'll grasp it the same as I did. Do what I suggest in these films until you find out I'm lying or I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't lie. And believe me, I do know what I'm talking about. Many years ago, they said, by their results, you'll know them, or by their fruits, you'll know them. Well, I'm 84, I've got as much energy as many people, 24 or 44. I've earned millions of dollars. I have wonderful friends all over the world. And this came to a guy that started with nothing. This does work for anyone. It truly does work for anyone. So dig into this and say, I'm going to give this a whirl until I find out he's lying or he doesn't know what he's talking about. You do that, and you're going to find these 13 principles will change your life like night and day. I searched every day, and every time I picked a new mentor, and I did pick new mentors, I did exactly what they said. It was difficult at first because what I was really doing was changing habit patterns. But they were teaching me things. They were teaching me information that the average person may never learn. I developed a very close rapport with them. And they were brilliant people, every one of them very accomplished. That is a good rule. If you want to do something, go to someone who has demonstrated by results they do know what they're talking about. Ask them, what should you do? Then do exactly what they tell you. Now, I know that works because I'm still doing it, and I do it every day. So I'm going to ask you to resurrect some of those dreams that you may have let fade. Bring them to the surface of your mind. Treat this as some magic formula if you want, and you'll find out it'll produce. I once read where a writer said, you know, when you really understand how the magicians perform their tricks, it isn't magic any longer. And that's true. I work conventions every now and then, and there's a magic act at the convention. They'll ask me to take part in some part of it. So to do that, I have to understand what they're doing. And I found out it's hard to believe. Wonder why the audience doesn't see this. When you understand the trick, it's not magic. But when you understand life, it's really magic. And that's what you're going to find. That's what you're going to find all wrapped up in this. It's absolutely incredible.